Arizona checks in at 5. Now, there's probably 5 teams that are going to be preseason ranked, so we can't really, I think, flip out about that one too much. What did you think about Arizona at 5? And then I'll give you my thoughts.
I think it's fair. I thought Arizona would be anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe even 6.
Right.
Obviously, you look at it, they get a lot back, but there's going to be the doubters about losing your coach. There's going to be doubters who just aren't familiar with Arizona football because that's a lot of Big 12 pundits, obviously. So I think it's fair. It's expected. I think the teams they have ranked ahead of them are all capable of being that good. My guess is also that, we're going to see it not shake out quite the same. I got a lot of questions about all the teams ahead of them as well.
All right, well, let's talk about number 1. I do not quite get, listen, under Utah, with Kyle Whittingham, Cam Rising is obviously, and, they've obviously been a very nice pairing. And Kyle Whittingham has obviously been a very good coach. But this is also a quarterback that won't have played in 2 years. To me, that is interesting. This isn't a guy that tore his ACL and missed, half of the season, is ready to go. This is a player that will have essentially not played football in 20 months. That one to me is fascinating, Brad.
See, I think that's what they're counting on. They're counting on him being a veteran presence, a guy who's going to be, 5 years older than some of the guys he's playing against. So they're giving him a lot of credit. But you're right. That's a long layoff. This is a guy who has taken a lot of punishment, a lot of injuries. If he can return to the form of that quarterback we saw lead that comeback against Florida, then they're going to be really, really good. If not, we saw that they were just okay with other quarterbacks not named Cam Rising.
Yeah, all right. Now, let's look at the other one. Kansas State, kind of in the similar boat here. And this is where it's fascinating for me. Kansas State, listen, Will Howard moved on to Ohio State, obviously, but you now have a guy in Avery Johnson, not the little lefty general from the Spurs, but somebody else who has now come in, and he started one game and he looked really good. But again, you got them at 2. They lost quite a bit as well. And you got a quarterback that you're not really sure about as well. That one makes me interested in as well, Brad Alice.
I think in many ways they're like Utah. They've been so consistent over the last few years, very, some highs, but not a lot of lows, that you're kind of banking on that. I think Oklahoma State's kind of in the same boat. They've been consistently good. So you're going to go with those teams over a team like Arizona that's had peaks and valleys.
Right. Okay. But
Kansas is a team like Kansas as well.
Kansas is, again, all of these teams are solid. Then you've got obviously Kansas and you got Oklahoma State in there as well. I am going to go out on a limb right now, and I am going to say that I would pick Arizona. Again, I get that there's concerns about Arizona. Here's where. I have a hard time believing that Brent Brennan is going to fall flat on his face. This isn't a first-year coach. He might not be a great coach, but this is a team with a lot of talent. I don't see them, especially with this coaching staff, falling flat on their face or figuring out, 8 games on how to field a football team. I don't see that being the case, Brad.
No, but I also think there's a contingent of people who are giving Jed Fish a lot of credit. And I think there's also some who feel some of last year was fluky. Utah obviously being severely injured when they come to Tucson. Now Arizona throttled them. A couple of those other games, Oklahoma having some players sitting out, things like that Arizona's not getting credit for. But I think it really comes down to a lot of people were just thinking it was all Jed Fish and his staff, and I think they do deserve a lot of credit. But he's one non-tweaked ankle away from 6-6.
I'm going to fight back on that a little bit with the Jed Fish thing. Yes, he deserves credit for putting this roster together, but I'm also going to say as well that, let's be honest here, he did not want to put Noah Fafita out there. And Noah Fafita was a much, much better quarterback than Jayden de Laura. If Jayden de Laura goes out, if Jayden de Laura is playing there, you're probably looking at a 5-7 team, something like that. Keep in mind, this is a team that, lost to a bad Mississippi State team, and Jayden de Laura essentially gave him that game. They were on their way to losing to Stanford before he tweaked his ankle. I can kind of go the other way and say that Arizona would have probably had a better record had they played them.
Yeah, you and I know that, and that was my comment on the tweaked ankle away from 6-6, but does John Johnson, the beat writer from the Orlando Sentinel, know that?
Right.
Does I'm making up names, obviously.
Oh, no. John Johnson.
Rick Smith of the Morgantown Gazette, does he know that? No. What they see is a guy who was literally a National Coach of the Year candidate move on to purpler pastures. And they can think that, maybe that was success. But as I think it's T. Burns there. He's right. Colorado and Oregon State could have easily been losses last year. You could have gotten Utah on a different week, and they could have been a different team.
But USC could, like T-Burn said.
Absolutely. But again, we know that. We watched every minute of Arizona football. Most of the people voting in this poll are just looking at key losses, key additions, starters returning, points, yards per game returning. They're just looking at numbers and trying to figure it out.
And I'll go a step further with it. I think let's use Washington, for example. Arizona outplayed Washington in the second half of that game. That was Noah Fafita's first real start. He was shaky in the first half. Had he been starting pretty much the whole season, you might have seen a different performance as well. See, to me, it was kind of a 10-win team with Noah Fafita in there. I see what people are saying, but I think you can go the other way as well. Now, go ahead, Brad.
Again, that's just my explanation for the poll.
No, I get it. Now, let's talk
plain and simple. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the strengths of this team going into Big 12 play. Listen, I've said this for a while now. This team's offense, it needs to be dynamic. It needs to be one of the better offenses in the entire country. It just does. You've got a quarterback, you've got an All-American receiver, you got a stable of running backs, you return 4 out of 5 offensive linemen. You need to be able to get that.
Yeah, I think what you have to do is you have to be able to have these guys click in a new scheme, new terminology. You need role players to step up. You need another tight end to step up or two. You need that third and fourth receiver to step up. Because you can't, I don't think, be like Jed Fish and have 2 receivers. Right. You have to figure out your running. And again, I think the running back room is very good, but you have to figure it out. Who's getting what carries, who's what guy. Is Speedy Luke just a third down back? Is he a primary back? How does that? So there's the questions aren't personnel, it's usage and it's depth. And right. If they could answer those, then yeah, you're absolutely right. This can be, I hate to be that guy, but we've never seen Dino Babers be a 35-point a game guy very often. Right. Syracuse had some okay offenses. He did some very nice things at Arizona 20-something years ago when getting to 30 was an accomplishment in college football. Right. But can he, run a dynamic? And frankly, I think you could almost make the argument that, Jed Fish, offensive genius, his offenses probably didn't score enough points. They slogged down in the red zone. Now, you can say that about a lot of guys because even Rich Rod, who is an offensive innovator, slogged in the red zone quite a bit. So, right. I don't think there are a lot of questions. My questions is it a good offense or it is a great offense? And those are the questions there.
And that's all right. But to me, it's got to be a great offense again. And I'm going to use somebody on Twitter said this, and I think it's a very good point. That you're probably not going to get many quarterbacks that are better than Noah Fafita. You're not going to get a better wide receiver than T-Mac. You've got to be able to, like I said, you got to be able to capitalize on this. I need this to be a top 15 offense. And I think Babers is a question mark. I actually don't have many questions at all about Dwayne Aquino. We're going to get to that in a second, even though he's dealing with a less talented personnel. But I think we're going to know very, very quickly, to be honest with you, if Dino Babers still has that fastball, because there's really no excuse for me for this offense not to be really good.
No, and I think obviously having an offensive head coach, even though he doesn't play a huge role in the offense like Jed Fish tried to, like Rich Rodriguez did, there's going to be accountability there. Right. His offenses at San Jose State, considering the personnel they had, were pretty good. And I do expect that. Again, can they be a team that consistently scores in the 30s and 40s? They have the personnel. Can it all come together?
Yes, exactly. Now, the other thing too that we got to look at is the defensive side of the football. I actually, and this is kind of where William, I think, I'm actually okay with the starting. First of all, I love the DBs outside of the one boundary corner. You've got 4 safeties that can, 3 of them, for a fact can play, from Genesis Smith to Dalton Johnson to Gunnar Maldonado. Obviously, Takario Davis could be a first-round pick as well. All of those guys are, big time. Traden Stukes in the nickel, that. So, yes, that one other cornerback is a question mark, but if there is one coach in the country that I think can make that defensive backfield work with a suspect corner, it is Dwayne Aquino.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think with the offenses you see to typically in the Big 12 spread offenses, you're not doing a lot of matchup one-on-one stuff. I wouldn't think. I think you're going to see a lot of zones, a lot of, help on that defense. And we don't know they don't have another corner. They have some bodies that they've brought in, whether it's transfers, whether it's young guys. And you're absolutely right. When you have a guy like Dwayne Aquina, a guy who has cranked out award winners and probably gotten snubbed on a couple more, you feel pretty good. If there's any one position, you want a guy to be able to develop, that it's Dwayne Aquina.
All right, now at the linebacker spot, then obviously last year, and I thought you were apropos, but I think he answered the question with Jacob Mano. You're like, all right, the next step for him is to be able to make more tackles near the line of scrimmage, not to be able to make more impactful plays. He did that. I mean, six sacks last year, a bunch of tackles for loss. He became an All-American type. Linebacker this past year, and I would look for that to continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll go down in that lore of like a Scooby Wright, who may not have the great NFL career. And Arizona used to crank out NFL linebackers.
Right.
When I was a kid, from Byron Evans to the Hunleys to those guys. And they haven't done that as much of late. And granted, the linebacker is not as an important position in the NFL either. But they have produced really good, productive linebackers who've had really good college careers. Your Spencer Larsons, your Scooby Wrights, Jacob Manu's that guy. Right. Now, can he get help? Again, there's nothing proven, but there's guys who've shown flashes, and there's plenty of potential. We've seen Justin Flo completely disappear, and we've seen him have some dominant quarters. So I think there's some help for Manu. And there's going to have to be, because you're going to need at least one other linebacker. You're going to have a lot of 2 linebacker sets because they're going to go 5-6 DBs quite a bit, but you're going to have guys help up and step up and help them out.
Right. Okay. Now, with the defensive line. Now, of course, we got ASU fans in here. Glenn, ASU was picked to finish last in the conference. We will make fun of ASU here in a second. It's actually not an inexperienced D line. My concern with the D line is the depth. I think the starting 4 is going to be just fine. You bring in Trey Smith, who's an all Mountain West guy. Again, I'm not saying that he's LeVar Arrington, but 7 sacks or whatever.
I think it's interesting. One of his best games was against USC, though.
For sure. That is very interesting. You got him and Ty across from him. I think it's going to be fine. And then the starting D tackles, Kevon Darton was the arguably the best interior pass rusher in the entire ACC last year, and he graded out that way. 5 sacks. Take that, Glenn. And then Chuba May. Hopefully Chuba May can be the BBN, the big Bill Norton, kind of that culture fit, that big land mover as well. I am totally okay with the starting 4. It's the depth that I'm worried about.
Well, and then, you got a couple other intriguing guys. I'm going to, the kid from Memphis, who was one of the top
great name,
top freshmen in, what was that? The AAC. I can't even keep these conferences straight anymore. Conference USA, AAC, whatever it is. So you've got some guys, and you got some unproven guys. You did lose quite a bit off that line, but in reality, you get 3 ends, 4 down linemen. You're probably in decent shape more often than not. And again, you don't need this defense to be great. Desert Swarm's not coming through that door, nor is a defense like that ever again in modern college football. You just need them to be about as good as last year, maybe slightly better, maybe even slightly worse if the offense is better. You just need a solid, decent defense. You do not need Georgia 3 years ago with 7 first-round picks. You just need teams not to score in the 30s consistently.
Yes, that's all you need. Again, I just need it to be solid. So now I'm going to ask you this, Brad. Where would you put U of A if Brad Alice is picking? Where does he have Arizona? Are you back in the A? Pick Arizona to win the conference. Do it right now.
I will be super honest. I haven't looked at it. I would probably guess I'd put them somewhere around 3rd.
Right.
The 2 teams I saw the most of last year, not including the Pac-12 teams, was Kansas and TCU, because they always seemed to be on my TV as I was heading out the door to go coach volleyball. Kansas returns a lot. Leipold's a great coach. I really like that quarterback who was out most of last year. Other than that, I don't really know much what's in the conference. I can't tell you much about Kansas State or Oklahoma State. I know Oklahoma State has that great running back, but he got a DUI last night. So how does that affect the team? My guess is Arizona should be contending for a spot in Arlington with a week or two left, and whether they can get there or not, I don't know. But I think Arizona is one of the better teams in this conference.
I have the least amount of questions though about Arizona's quarterback that I do about all of those teams in the top 5. So that's very, very good.
Kansas' quarterback's really good if he's healthy,
but he's injury prone.
Really good, yeah.
He is very good.
He's injury prone, yeah, because he puts his body on the line like every play.
Right now, let's talk about ASU. ASU picked dead last. Here's the thing. With ASU, they just don't have much talent. You look at their roster, and you're probably maybe 3 guys that would start at the U of A, if that. I mean, there's just not a lot of talent there. I'm not surprised at all that ASU was finished dead last. That ASU was picked dead last. Now, I would like to see them finish ahead of Colorado, but either way, ASU doesn't have much talent.
No. I think Dillingham did a pretty good job last year, and I might be surprised if they finished dead last. But again, I don't know how. I know Houston has had their struggles. I know some of those other teams have been depleted as well. I think this is a very important year for Dillingham, the coach, because he's obviously recruiting at a pretty good level right now. They've done some good things this summer, but he has to show that he can continue to coach a talent deficient team and show signs that talent infusion will pay dividends.
Yes.
And if he can do that, and again, I think to use the comparison, I think we did see that from Fish. Although that 1 in 10 year was awful, that team got better as the year went on, despite losing a lot of guys to injury. Yeah. So again, I think Dillingham is a good coach. Is he the guy to turn the sleeping power? I have no idea, but he's invested, he's recruiting well. And I thought he did a good enough job last year that, I think I did from one of my podcasts back when I was actually consistently doing it. I had my coaching tier rankings, and he was in the group of overachieved.
Yes. Now, also, I got to give, we're going to get to some recruiting here in just a minute. But first, also, let's talk about Colorado. Now, a lot of people are, Colorado's picked to finish 11th in the Big 12. I say, ha, 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 ha. What is your opinion on Dion?
I don't know yet. Mm-hmm. So far, it looks like all sizzle, no steak.
Right.
I think, to me, the shtick, and again, I'm not an 18-year-old kid. The shtick to me is, I like my Lute Olsons. I like my Nick Sabans. I like my I even like my Bobby Bowdens. The shucks.
Right.
The fact they call him Coach Prime, and I get it. They called Coach K Coach K,
dude,
but I didn't like Coach K either.
The guy's an egomaniac. It's about him. Yeah.
It's about him. It's it's about his kids. Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of Bronny going 55 to the Lakers. I need to see it. And, last year, frankly, they were lucky to beat Colorado State last year. Colorado State kind of gave away that game. They beat TCU. So I need to see it. I do think there's a chance it does work because, again, a lot of kids want to play for him. But the fact that he had all those kids come in last year and so many of them bolted so quickly means maybe they're seeing through some things. But that said, if a guy is going to turn it around in a place, you either need the perfect guy or you need the perfect gimmick. And I think he does have a really good gimmick. Well,
I do think, though, that he's going to be gone after this year. If they go 5-7 and his kid leaves and Travis Hunter leaves and all that, I think that they are, I would be surprised if he's still
health
there.
Problems or media opportunity he just can't turn down.
Wants to spend more time with the family. Things like that. I could certainly see that being the case.
And frankly, if they win 10 games, then he's probably gone too.
Yes, I would agree with that as well. All right, now.
I think the worst thing for Dion is to be 7-5.
Yes, I think that is a bad
because
thing.
I don't know how long he wants to be there without his kid playing quarterback.